Welcome back to the Jensen Sessions, where we explore the craft, creativity, and real world stories behind today's most inspiring artists and educators. I'm your host, Shane Jensen. Today, I'm joined by someone who has shaped the vocal landscape in Las Vegas and far beyond, Dr. Michelle Latour. She's a lyric coloratura soprano, a respected pedagogue, a published author, and the founder of Latour Voice Studios. Her work spans classical, musical theater, and contemporary styles, and she's helped countless singers find their authentic voice through the blend of artistry, technique, and body bass awareness. In this conversation, we dive into her teaching philosophy, her journey as an entrepreneur, and the deeper purpose behind her work as an educator and mentor. Whether you're a singer, a teacher, or simply someone who loves the art of vocal expression, you're going to get so much out of this episode. Let's get into it. Welcome back. Today, I am very happy to welcome Dr. Michelle Latour to the Jensen Sessions. We have been collaborating for well over 15 years, and I think it's been a very fruitful collaboration. I think that she does fantastic work with her students, and she's a very empathetic teacher. So let's get right into the conversation. Welcome, Dr. Michelle Latour, to the Jensen Sessions.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know it's crazy we've been working together for that long. I think part of our joke is we're the only two who can stand to work with each other.
Yeah, probably true, because we're both Virgos.
Yeah, we both have that very similar work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a long time, and it's been a lot of good experiences, and a lot of singers have cycled through during that period of time.
Yes, I am fortunate to have been able to work with a lot of really great singers.
Yeah. So for those who don't know much about you, why don't you give us a little background on yourself and why you're drawn to music?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I have been teaching now for 35 years, which is crazy because when I was younger, I always thought I was going to be a singer. And if you had told my younger self that I would be a teacher, my answer would have been, oh my God, no, my parents are teachers. I don't want to be a teacher. But like many kids, I fell into music really early. Actually, in fourth grade, I started playing flute. So I initially was an instrumentalist. And then I really wanted to take piano lessons. And my parents were like, yeah, you're already doing flute. So in fifth grade, I taught myself to play piano and convinced them to also let me take piano lessons, which is ironic because I stuck with piano lessons through my senior year in high school. And if you heard me on the piano now, you would never believe that I used to play Bach conventions.
Oh, wow.
And then in middle school, I discovered choir and I stuck with band. I did band all through middle school and high school. I was always first chair, did all state. Even my senior year, I taught flute lessons to younger students. And then I stuck with singing as well in middle school and high school. And really it came down to two things. One is my high school choir director said to me one day, he's like, you're really good. You should major in this. And I was like, that sounds really easy. Okay, I'll do that. Ha. As we know, it's one of the more difficult majors. And secondly, I was probably a better flutist, but good grief, by my senior year in high school, I was really burnt out on practicing 2 hours a day. So by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I already knew I was going to get my doctorate. Both my parents had their masters, so I knew I had to one up my parents, I guess. I don't know. So I went to Fresno State for my undergraduate because I grew up near Fresno. I went as far away as possible for my master's. I went to Boston University, and that's when Phyllis Curtin was there. So it was a really great time to be there. And then I finished my master's in 1991. And I moved back home for a couple of years, just trying to figure out what I was going to do, because at 23, I was not equipped to be hired as a professional singer. I actually taught high school English for a couple years. I taught high school at the same high school I had attended
Oh,
and the
wow.
same high school where my mom was also an English teacher. I did that for 4 years, and I literally woke up one morning and thought, oh my gosh, I have to get out of here. Was not put on this earth to be an English teacher. So 6 months later, I found myself at USC
Uh-huh.
getting my doctorate. And I was really, really fortunate because I had a grad assistantship. So I walked out of USC with my doctorate and I did not owe a dime in scholarships.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, really lucky. And then I taught at San Diego State. Then I moved to Ohio. I was an associate professor at Bluffton University, which is a private Mennonite liberal arts college,
Mm,
which I really enjoyed. I'm not Mennonite, but it was a really wonderful job and a really great culture, a really strong
mhm.
choral tradition.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then I moved to Las Vegas in 2009 for the full-time position at UNLV. And
yeah.
then in 2014, I realized I could make a lot more money and work from home if I taught private lessons instead of being in academia. So it's kind of what I've
Yeah.
been doing since 2016.
That's good. Fascinating background. And, you've taught at major universities and now you run your own studio. So, how has your teaching of philosophy evolved from academia to entrepreneurship?
Great question. There are so many facets to that. The plus side, I will say, is that I am my own boss.
Mm,
I get to choose who I work with. I get to work with a wide variety of students I usually don't take them younger than fifth or sixth grade. And I've got students, my age and older in their 60s. I also get to teach all kinds of genres. I'm not just involved in, classical. I mean, classical is my first love.
yeah.
But then the other thing is the flip side is I am my own boss. So I have to build my own policies. I have to come up with, how much I'm going to charge. I have to have my business license. I have to keep up my website. I have to do marketing. So, I have to do all of that. But I think the biggest shift is in academia, you wield the power of grades. So the power dynamic
Mm,
is a bit different. Now that
yeah.
I'm in the service of the client, that relationship has changed quite a bit. I
Yeah.
also set my own hours. I mean, we were just joking earlier that, I'm kind of a workaholic. I'm still teaching 6 days a week, and I don't get, the summers off paid like you do in academia. But the other great side of it is I don't have to deal with the politics. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it came down to people, politics, and pay. So my pay is way more than in academia. I don't have to deal with the politics, and I get to choose the people I work with.
Yeah, yeah, that's good because I think many people just think that college professors just sit back and rake it in, with a shovel, and they have to back up the Brinks truck, but it's not the case at all. So, one of the things that I know about you is you are so vested in continuing education. And I know one thing, you've worked with the somatic voice work, which emphasizes body awareness and singing. How has that approach and some of the other approaches you've studied changed the way that you teach vocal technique?
Well, I definitely place high importance on continuing to hone my craft. I am definitely a lifelong learner. And that's one thing I do miss about academia is I miss the intellectual curiosity. I always
Mm,
enjoyed learning new things. Um, I still, I still actually use some of my things that I learned at USC, 26 years ago. But I'm really interested in staying on top of the latest research.
mhm,
So, for
mhm.
instance, like APN, anterior to posterior narrowing. It's a Carrie Obert thing where you're actually pulling your tongue back and raising the back of your tongue for pop and musical theater to help when you're an upper mixed belt. Things like that to me are fascinating. So I do nerd out with the real sciencey stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I also want to keep things fresh for my students. I get bored really easily. Jeannie Lavetri with Somatic Voicework. I owe so much to her. I'm so grateful for the legacy that she has
Mhm.
created because she's the one that really opened my eyes to other styles.
Yeah.
When I don't know if it's still like this, but when I was in academia, it was pretty much classical or the highway. Classical was the end all be all. And many people not myself necessarily, erroneously think that classical is the only technique that you can
Hmm.
use that for all genres, which is completely not true. So Jeannie really helped me. Gosh, I first started working with her in, I want to say 2008. I went down to
Mm.
Shenandoah University and did a whole week long series of classes with her. She has somatic voice work levels 1, 2, and 3, and I've done all 3 levels numerous times. So she really got the ball rolling for me. Even a few years ago, I think you played for this as well. Jeannie actually came and stayed with me
Yep.
for the weekend, and we did a series of master classes, and she worked pretty much exclusively just with my students.
Yeah.
But lately, other classes I've taken, well, one that I really have enjoyed is Natalie Weiss, breaking down the riffs, is learning how to teach and sing riffs in pop
Hmm.
and musical theater. Other classes I've taken, well, Ann Baltz used to offer teacher training through OperaWorks. I've done her courses. She's phenomenal.
Hmm.
I also have done some classes with Meredith Colby, who is all about the brain and how the brain works when we're learning to sing. And then my most recent has been with Maddie Tarbox. I've been taking some classes with her, and that has completely transformed the way I teach. Like,
Mm.
completely changed the way I teach.
Yeah. So do you think that if you hadn't have left the university that you would have branched out into these other areas of teaching of singing, like the pop styles or the musical theater, or would your continual learning just been in the opera style or the classical style?
Well, oddly, I sought out the CCM styles with Jeannie when I was teaching at Bluffton in Ohio,
Mm.
because so many of my students wanted to also sing musical theater. And yeah, they could do the legit stuff with the same technique, but if they wanted to do, like, I speak 6 languages from Putnam County Spelling Bee,
Yeah.
there's no vibrato. It's a different larynx position. The sound is different. The way you deliver the text is different. So I thought, I got to figure out how to do this,
Hmm.
because I'm not serving my students if I don't know how to teach this style of singing. So that kind of opened it up for me. And I did okay enough to get by. But now
Hmm.
that I teach privately, gosh, even my classical students want to do musical theater. So the
Yeah.
majority of my students want to do musical theater. And then the reality is, how many shows on Broadway right now are jukebox musicals, where you still have
Yeah.
to have that rock pop sound. And so, or they even want pop songs in their audition books. So just by virtue of demand, I've also now delved into how to teach pop styles.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's good because the reality is, if you're as a singer, being versatile in multiple different styles makes you more employable. I mean, really, even as a pianist, the more styles you're versatile in, the more jobs you're going to get.
For sure. And I think of someone like Shayna Alexander, who is my student at UNLV.
Hmm.
She just was naturally gifted. She could also do musical theater. I was like, girl, how are you belting that high? But if you hear her now and she posts stuff on Instagram, she's doing jazz. So she can,
Yeah,
she can do it all. And I will say, a lot of my students who are classical first, who have that really strong head voice, it's been fairly easy for them to switch back and forth between those genres. So I do find that if you've got that classical basis, that it sometimes can be easier to branch out into other styles, just because their head voices are really strong.
and you are a prolific author, and so what topics do you feel most urgently need discussion among today's voice teachers?
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not as prolific as a writer anymore, because let's face it, now that I'm not in academia, I don't have to do all those things for
Yeah,
tenure. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, if I'm not going to get paid for that, I'm not going to do it. I
yeah,
can't tell you how many things we do for free in academia, between recitals, going to conferences, publishing, recruiting, serving on committees, like just so many things that you have to do. So I'm maybe a little out of the loop with what, and I, again, teaching privately, I collaborate with a lot of teachers in Las Vegas, but like the Nats conference is next month. I'm not going. So I maybe don't have the pulse on what's going on with voice teachers nationally so much. Um, but student centered learning, Dr. Shannon Coates,
Hmm.
She's very important in that field, and so I feel like it would behoove teachers to learn more about that. I mean, the
Hmm.
old school way of teaching is like the way I teach and the way I communicate with students is completely different than when I was younger, or the way my teachers communicated with me and imparted information. So I feel
Yeah.
like how we communicate with our students is always important. I also feel learning how to teach other styles is important. Another topic that that teachers I think would be helpful to know about is singers when they're pregnant and post pregnancy. I do work with a lot of adult singers, and I've had several that have had babies recently, and so
Hmm.
how to learn that. And then the aging voice. We're really just now starting to talk about menopause and perimenopause and making that more of like a regular conversation, and that
Mm.
impacts people's voices differently. So to know a
Yeah.
little bit about that, I think is also extremely helpful.
Oh, absolutely. I would think so. So in that vein, many singers struggle to balance the classical and commercial styles. So how do you help students navigate this crossover authenticity? I mean, like, I remember listening to Joan Sutherland try to sing musical theater, and it was okay, nice job, Joan, stick in this area over here. So there is that issue of getting the classical sound out for a more contemporary sound.
Yes. So if you have a classical singer that wants to learn musical theater or pop styles, one thing I learned from Jeannie that was super helpful is when you're first starting to change genres, don't sing classical and musical theater in the same day, because your
Mm,
vocal folds are like, oh my God, what are you doing? And so
right.
they need time to be able to go back and forth, because classical is all about the beautiful sound and this gorgeous, free, creamy, resonant vibrato tone. And musical theater is more about the communication and getting the text out. And it's not always about a beautiful sound. So things like vibrato or a really rounded tone, those aren't qualities that directors are looking for in a contemporary show. So it's being able to separate the styles and understand how your voice works, and understand, okay, I need a maybe a little bit higher larynx position here. I need to thin out the sound. I need to make it more talky. I need to use vibrato as a tool and not the norm. How do I flip that from my classical sound?
Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting when you have students who are moving in between both worlds kind of way. And I know this is something that happens all the time. How do you coach students on the realities of the audition process? Like the reality is that, you know what? When a student goes into an audition and they don't get selected, it could be because maybe there wasn't the right voice type, maybe they didn't have the right body shape, maybe they didn't have a and this constant rejection is a tough thing to do. How do you address that with students?
It's really tough. Well, why do you think I'm a voice teacher? I finally got so tired of all the rejection. I'm
Yeah.
kidding, but no, there is a part of that. I spent an entire year after my doctorate, I think in the early 2000s, really hitting the pavement trying to get a singing career. I spent time in New York, I was in Greece, I was in San Francisco. This is when I was living in San Diego. And after a year of that, I was like, wow, this is exhausting. And I'm a soprano. I have a voice very similar to lots of other singers, and I'm a better teacher than singer. So I'm going to stick with teaching. So
Yeah.
that's what kind of did it for me. But you have to be pretty strong. I mean, there's going to be a lot of rejection, a lot. And the hard thing is, it has nothing to do with you. It's very subjective. It's just like you said, maybe you're taller than the tenor. Maybe the costumes they have aren't going to fit you.
Mhm.
Maybe they're hiring someone that they've already worked with in the past. So it's really hard because you are your voice, you are your instrument, but it's hard to not take it personally when you keep getting rejection after rejection after rejection. And it's just finding ways to perform, finding your own performance opportunities that's going to help fill your soul in the interim. And then there's always things like, okay, how did I do in that audition? Let's have some honest reflection. Okay, I got really nervous. So why did I get so nervous? Well, because I haven't auditioned in 2 years, or because
Mhm.
my dance skills really aren't that good, or because I haven't addressed my performance anxiety issues, or I wasn't really all that prepared, or my song probably had too many high notes. So you can always go back and reassess. Think about what you did really well, what you feel proud of, what you worked hard for, and then being realistic, like, okay, here are maybe 2 or 3 or 4 things that I can work on for
Yeah.
the next audition. So it's trying to not be defeated by it, but take it on as a challenge. It's like, okay, I didn't get that role. That's cool. Let me work harder and figure out what I'm gonna tackle next and go into that next audition and, have more skills.
Yeah, it's so competitive being a vocalist. I mean, I would have to say it's the largest segment of students at the university, and there are so many vocalists out there, so few positions available. I mean, I know a ton of people who were singers at the university when I went to college who don't work in the field anymore. They're doing something completely different. That just speaks to the competitive, and I would say almost sometimes quasi cutthroat nature of being a vocalist.
Yes, you have to really, really, really want it. You have to be so laser focused and really work hard. I mean, yes, there's some luck being in the right place at the right time, but it is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and having been on the other side as a music director and on selection committees, just be assured that, I'm not sitting there thinking, "Oh, I'm never going to hire this person." When we're doing a show and we've explored it, we're looking for something specific, and maybe in this production, it just isn't quite filled with the people that we have in front of us, and so don't take it personally. It's
Right.
just what they're looking for. So, as an entrepreneur, what are the biggest lessons you've learned about building a sustainable career in music?
Persistence, patience, having a positive attitude. Um, Yeah, I think we kind of touched on that a little bit already at how incredibly competitive it is, and you really have to be laser focused and 110% committed to making it in the industry. I had a voice teacher, one of the best teachers I've ever worked with, Peggy Sears. This is when I
Mm,
was in Bakersfield. And and this was, I worked with her after I finished my master's. So trying to figure out, okay, I'm 23. I still haven't figured out how to really sing. How am I going to navigate this? And I mean, she said this back to me all the way back in, I don't know, 92, 93, and it
mhm,
stuck with me. There is a career out there for anyone who wants it. It just,
mm,
you have to define that. I knew I was never going to sing at the Met. My voice isn't big enough to fill a hall with 4,000 people, but
right.
I'm pretty darn good with coming up with or finding my own opportunities. I'm very persistent. I'm incredibly organized. I think way ahead. I'm really good at keeping in touch with people. So reaching out like, hey, let's do a recital together for voice and violin, or let's do a recital for voice and guitar. So I was pretty good with finding my own opportunities.
Mhm.
But you have to really think outside the box.
Yeah, and with as you've been a prolific performer, what performance or collaboration has most shaped your artistic identity?
That's a great question. And you also touched on a great question about your artistic identity. I think so many young singers have a really hard time struggling with that. Like I can't tell you how many times someone will come into a lesson like, I don't really like my voice, or I don't really know what I'm supposed to sound like. So really spending time exploring that and
Mhm.
figuring out what your identity is. I learned early on, my first love was not opera. I mean, I love opera, I love going to it, but that just wasn't a thrill for me to be in a production and to go to
Yeah.
all the rehearsals where you're sitting around while they're staging other stuff. That just wasn't for me. I really liked chamber music, and I also really liked the contemporary, all the crazy, obscure, weird stuff. So I really enjoyed, probably one of the most enjoyable performances I did was with Dr. Timothy Hoft. We
Mm,
did Crumb's Apparition. So it's a cycle of, I think, 6 or 7 songs for voice and amplified piano.
mm,
That was really, really fun. I did a couple decades ago, I used to work with Dr. Felix Olszafka. He's a violinist, and we did
Mm.
a whole series of concerts for just voice and violin. And we traveled up California and presented, I think, like a dozen or so. I also did a couple recitals with just voice and guitar with
Mm.
numerous guitarists. And I even, one of the guitarists I worked with at USC, Brian Head, also played lute. So it was really cool. We would do like Benjamin Britten's songs. I forget what the cycle is, but they're very out there. It was songs for voice and guitar. But then we also did like a set of John Dowland, John
Oh,
Campion songs for voice and lute.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
That's fascinating. And, so you teach a wide variety of students, and even some students who are in the middle of careers but have some vocal difficulties. So, what advice would you give to mid-career artists facing burnout or injury to their vocal folds?
uh, yeah, injury can be a common thing. In connection with that is what I touched on it earlier is like perimenopause or
Mhm.
menopause. As you get older, your voice changes. So it's learning how to deal with those changes, knowing how to take care of yourself, maybe changing the way you warm up or your FOF changes. So you have to learn all new rep. I mean, I've had plenty of students who were a soprano and switched to mezzo soprano or vice versa. So it's
Mhm.
just your voice is part of your body. And as you get older and your body changes, your voice is changing with you. So you can't apply the same things you did when you were 20 or 30 when you're 40 or 50. So
Yeah.
it's learning to grow with that. If you do have some kind of vocal fold pathology, like in Vegas, we call it Vegas throat. It is a real thing where the allergies here are just terrible. So it's learning to take care of your voice and deal with that. It's also finding, okay, I need to get my vocal folds looked at. I need to find a laryngologist.
Yeah.
And so, getting a team of people, maybe it's a laryngologist, your voice teacher, and a speech language pathologist, so that you have a team of experts tackling that.
Yeah, because it's interesting because, you often hear Broadway singers having to do 8 shows a week, and the fatigue that comes onto the voice at that point is just is tremendous. And so, what kind of techniques do you give singers who have to perform 8 shows a week, at full voice?
Well, it's learning you have to, like, really take care of yourself. I mean, I remember when I was performing a lot and I think I was living in Boston, it was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna go to that noisy bar. Oh, it's cold outside, I gotta put a scarf on. Okay, I'm constantly washing my hands. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I eat healthy. I'm not gonna, drink any alcohol." So you can become very obsessive compulsive about taking care of your voice. Like, you can't get sick because it's not like I'm sitting at the piano. I am my instrument. It's also warming up, earlier in the day. It's also doing a cool down when you're done. It's also pacing yourself. You
Mm,
cannot if you using a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is the quietest and 10 is the loudest. If you're doing, a very difficult show, 8 shows a week, you never want to go past a 7 or an 8. You got to always keep something in the bank.
yeah,
And if you're doing musical theater, and you have a really good technique, sometimes you can't tell if a singer is in belt or upper mixed belt or they're in head. So
right.
there are ways to be in head register and it sounds like upper mixed belt. So there's not as much vocal load going on.
Yeah, yeah. And, speaking about, injuries and vocal sustainability, you, recently founded, with Katie Morris, the Rehart Gessner Fund, which honors your grandmother and supports music teachers here in Clark County. What inspired you to create it, and what impact has it had so far?
Yeah, it's been one of the coolest things I've done and something I'm very, very proud of. Katie was taking lessons with me at the time, and she had a big, gorgeous house, and we were just kind of talking, joking around. She's like, we should do a recital at my house. I've got this great piano in this really big house, and I got a lot of friends, so we should do a recital." And I was like, "Oh, well, I've got some really good adult singers. Maybe we do like a recital with 5 or 6 of my singers. We could do some duets and some trios. She's like, oh, that's cool. So we're going along doing our lesson. I said, you know what? We should make it a benefit recital. Maybe we should raise money for scholarships. She's like, wow, that's a great idea. So we decided, yeah, so purely just
Yeah.
this organic thing that came out of a conversation. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but essentially that was the beginning of it. And we decided that we wanted to offer scholarships to CCSD music teachers. I was already working with quite a few, and the amount of vocal use, I mean, they are starting at 7 in the morning. It's like herding cats with some of these elementary school teachers. There's not always a ton of support. So they're singing with their students, they're having to talk to them, and their voices are tired. And then what's left for their voices at the end of the day. So we decided it would be better to raise money for scholarship for voice teachers. I think we've awarded over 15 scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact has been tremendous. I mean, we brought Dr. Gupta from LA out a couple years ago, and she met with 6 or 7 of the singers, and we paid for exams. So they all had their vocal folds looked at, and Dr. Gupta brought her speech language pathologist with her, and some of the students continued to work with the SLP online to help their speaking voices. So it's been a really, really cool thing that Katie and I came up with. And yeah, we named it Rehart Gessner after our grandmothers, because our grandmothers were very important in our musical development when we were younger.
Yeah, it's a great foundation, and I think we don't often associate vocal fatigue with teachers, but it's really a thing. One of the things I did notice the last time I was in CCSD, which has been a long time ago, was that they actually started using microphones. They have microphones in the classroom that they can wear around there, and I think that might help a little bit. A little bit as well. Do you find many teachers that you work with using those, or have you recommended that they use those?
That's one of the first questions I ask them. And
Oh.
many of them do. Sometimes the equipment is broken, or it's not working very well, or something's gotten lost. So they're not always using it. I feel like the biggest impact we've made with Rehart Gessner is the music teachers who were not vocalists first. They were, violinist or a flutist or clarinetist, yet they're teaching elementary music, and the majority of what they do is singing with the kids. So it's
Right.
those students that have been so fun to work with, because they have found that, oh, wow, I actually can sing pretty well. So it's given them a lot of confidence in working with their students, which their kids pick up on that. So that's been really cool to work with them.
Yeah, that's exciting. You've worked with so many students, and some of them have gone on to great success. What qualities do you see in students who go on to thrive professionally?
Oh, it's a great question. Well, first of all, they're usually pretty gosh darn talented, with phenomenal voices. They have a go-getter attitude, and they don't give up. Like, they have a goal and they really work towards that.
Yeah.
And not let failure or, you know, audition that didn't go quite the way they wanted to stand in their way. They are persistent and keep at it.
Yeah, yeah. How do you see as far as opportunities are concerned, the music scene in Las Vegas? What kind of a music scene do you have there?
It's so crazy. So I also, when I was in academia, I had blinders on. I just paid attention to what was going on at UNLV, because there was so much. I mean, with the opera program, there's jazz, there's so many great things. So, and you've got the 16 weeks, 14 weeks where the student has to perform in the convocation. They have to get ready for a jury. They're getting ready for a recital, or they're getting, their doctoral candidates, and have to get all that ready. So there's not much time to veer outside of the lens of the university, because there's so much within that. But once I left UNLV and started teaching privately, it was like, holy cow, we have so much. There's so many shows on the Strip. I've had students who are like backup singers, for residencies. We have, I think last time I counted, 10 to 12 different community theater organizations.
Mhm.
You know, I have
Mhm.
students who are gondoliers at the Venetian. Um, Gosh, it's been a decade now. Emily Stevenson, Stevie Redmond, and I started a Opera on Tap chapter.
Mhm.
And so I think half the rosters, maybe my students. And you play for them as well, but
I
that's been
do.
really
Yeah.
fun to give the singers a chance to perform in a very non-threatening environment. We sing at a bar.
Yeah,
Uh,
tell people a little bit about that concept of Opera on
oh,
Tap. When did you first become
and
affiliated with Opera on Tap?
so it was when I started teaching privately, 2016, and I didn't know Emily. I forget who connected us together, but I'd heard of Opera on Tap. And Emily had been in Opera on Tap chapters because it's a national nonprofit 501(c)(3). There are even chapters in, I think there's 3 chapters in Germany
Mm.
and 20 some odd chapters throughout the United States. And Emily had been in 2 chapters in other locations and had recently moved to Las Vegas. So we connected, and I'm always looking. I will say I'm very good at finding performance opportunities for my students. Sometimes I'm sure sometimes my students think I'm a little pushy. So I'm like, try this, try that, do this. Try to find things for them to perform.
Yeah.
But Emily and I, along with Stevie, started Opera on Tap. And yeah, it's been 10 years. So the mission is to give emerging artists an opportunity to sing in places that you might not expect, like a bar. And then also the patrons at the bar who maybe not know, they don't know anything about opera are exposed to it and realize, oh, wow, this can be really fun. So that's been a really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, I know from my experience with Opera on Tap, it's you go to a show and it's not like any recital that you would ever go to. It's extremely casual. They're having a fun time. Not all the right notes are being hit, and it just gives people an opportunity to see, I think, to see opera who might not normally see it, and to know that these are just regular people who are up there on stage who are performing as well. I mean, it is such a fantastic organization. I think it's great.
Yeah. Now, some of these people have masters in performance.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
Or even their doctorate or their studio owners. I mean, one thing I'm also very proud of is a lot of my private students now are also teachers, teach privately. But yeah, they get to see opera in, like you said, a very casual, fun, interactive experience. There are games. Things don't have to necessarily be memorized. Performers will do duets and trios. There's always a really fun theme.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just a really fun time.
And it seems like to me that the singers are always a little bit more relaxed than they are standing on Doc Rando's stage, where they're kind of standing like I mean, they're engaging with the audience. They're walking around the venue, and it's just a fun time. So I would urge anyone to, if you get a chance to, if there's an Opera on Tap chapter in your city, go see them because they're fun.
Yeah, and the singers really enjoy it because it's not an audition. It's not a performance where they're being judged or graded. It's not like, oh yeah, you're in the show. It's purely for the fun and the love of it. So, they have to worry about someone saying, oh, I'm sorry, that note wasn't quite right in tune, so we're not going to cast you. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about any of that.
So one of the things I know about your studio is that you hold bi-yearly recitals, and you also have your students participate in a lot of competitions and something throughout the course of the year. How important for the development of the artist do you feel that these opportunities are for your students?
Well, a great question. Yes, I hold 2 recitals a year, and then I do around 4 or 5 master classes where it's
Hmm.
either I'm conducting the master class or I bring in guest artists. And then I encourage students to participate in voice competitions that may come up. Uh, Not all teachers do that. There are a lot of teachers I know in town that don't do recitals at all. They're just focused on getting their students ready for performances and gigs, at their school or college or whatever they're doing. Um, but I'm just so used to the academic model,
Hmm.
and I wanted to offer more to my students than just voice lessons. So it's a whole experience. And I also find that in doing the recitals and encouraging people to be in competitions, you're working towards a goal. So you're
Yeah.
more inclined to practice, or you're more inclined to get your repertoire prepared because you know that, oh, I got that recital coming up next month. So I find it's just a good motivator to keep students engaged and prepared. The master classes I do are a wide variety. I did one on riffs. I've done it on how to practice.
Hmm.
I brought in Dr. Linda Lister. She did one on yoga for singers,
Hmm.
which was really fun. I bring in Dina Emerson, who's also one of my students. She's a professional actor, and she will do a master class on how to stage your songs for auditions. And then I've also brought in Antoinette Cohen several times, and she is, I think, working on her doctorate right now in I'm going to not remember the correct title, but basically performance anxiety, how to work through that mental aspect of it. And her classes have been really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that this type of studio model does is it creates a sense of community, that the student is not just by themselves. I mean, of course, some of these students are in high school, some of them in college, and so forth. And, I think it's important for them to see other people of their age, actually what they're doing. I think that's awesome to build a community of your singers that way.
Yes. And that has been with me ever since I taught voice, even at the community college, because it is so competitive. It can be so cutthroat and it can be so backstabbing. And I am not one of these teachers that's like, oh, my students are better than everybody else, or, oh, I have all these secrets that I can't share because it's my style of teaching. I like to be collaborative. I like to play well with other voice teachers. I do collaborate with other voice teachers in town. We actually started a Vegas voice teachers cooperative, which is a group of 5 or 6 voice teachers where we do things together. But for me, with that community, it's like, look, it's already difficult enough. If you all can't get along together within my studio, how do you think you're going to cut it out there? You need to learn
Right.
to be a good colleague and to have each other's backs and to be supportive. And let's face it, we are not solving world peace. We are singing. Yes, we are making
Right.
the world a much better place and a more beautiful place, but it's so much easier if we can do it getting along and working towards the same goal. Like
Yeah.
I have no patience for the backstabbing competitive. I mean, yes, it's competitive, but within my studio, I really want people to support each other.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that this is one of the areas I think that the university system gets it kind of right on, because most universities require a weekly, I forget what they call them, their studio class or something like that, where all the students of that studio get together and then they play for each other.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I experienced at UNLV, and I thought it was really I thought it was really very good that I had the opportunity to mingle outside of the classroom, but in a more positive, supportive environment with other pianists or other vocalists or whatever it may be for your studio.
Right, because you're still going to learn from watching the other students.
So, looking ahead, what do you hope your legacy will be in the world of vocal pedagogy and performance?
Oh, no idea. I don't think about those things. Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I left academia, that was one of my concerns. Was like, I know I'm making a difference because I'm working with all these students and I see what a difference I'm making in their lives. But I'm still doing the same thing on an individual basis. It's in a private studio. I mean, the Rehart Gessner Foundation has definitely touched a lot of lives and I think has made a lasting impact. But really just, to make a difference in the world. At one point I was like, oh, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to write books and blah, 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 blah. And okay, I'm too old for that and I'm just too tired. It's just that's not important to me anymore. What's important is the one-on-one connections I have
Hmm.
and continuing to foster that love of music and that love of singing so that I'm passing that down to future generations and mentoring singers who also want to be teachers. So really teaching teachers how to be good voice teachers and how to, in turn share that with other people. So really to help future teachers learn the craft of teaching voice lessons. And just
Yeah,
model that behavior as I mean, yes, I'm human. Sometimes I'm cranky or have a bad day, but really trying to model for students like this. What we do is we're very fortunate we get to do this. What we do is really fun. It's hard work, but what a joy to be able to do what we do.
yeah, and I think that I would like to see a little bit more camaraderie or community between the teachers in a particular area, because there's more than enough students to go around. I mean, you can teach as much as you want to with as with as many students who are getting interested in music, and we know of the scientific research about the benefits of music on the brain and how it affiliates with other academic subjects. So I think that that participating in some of these cohorts that you do and getting to know some of the teachers, and not having this, well, I need to harvest students from you and so forth. I think it's better to really just be cooperative, try to build each other up. So how do you think some of the MTNAs, um, and these other music organizations develop that and try to support that and the importance of those institutions? Well, speak about just these music organizations in general. I know that but you were a member of NTMA or the National Nats.
Yeah. Yeah, I belong to.
Yeah.
So yes, the collaboration and working with others. So a lot of teachers do this as well. I think I offer an initial fit session. So the student has to come and we do this introductory lesson together. And if we're not a good fit, like I don't feel like I can help them or our personalities don't mesh, I will send them to somebody else. I mean, I know a lot of voice teachers in Las Vegas, or I'll send them to one of my adult students who's a teacher. So it's like, you're, a wonderful person. You have a great voice. I don't think we're going to work well together. So here's a list of 3 or 4 people that I think would be a good fit for you. So
Hmm.
I do really try to build a sense of community with other voice teachers in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's really nice. Well, Dr. Latour, this has been quite an exciting conversation. And if people wanted to learn more about you and what you do and your studio, where can they find that information?
Oh, well, I would love for them to check out my website. It's Dr. Michelle Latour. I am also on Instagram and Facebook. It's the Latour Voice Studios. And you can always contact me through my website. I think there's like a little contact button, and that will be sent directly to my email. So lots of ways to communicate with me. But yeah, I'd love for people to follow me on my social media. I lately I've had a pretty robust social media presence. I mean,
You could say that, yeah.
posting a lot. We just did a studio recital in May, and I hired a professional photographer who took fantastic pictures, and we have
Yeah.
videos. So I do post a lot of recital footage and pictures, and some silly things about my personal life. So yeah, there's
Right.
quite a bit on there, and my
And
dog.
you do teach, yeah, and your dog Jade, yeah. And you do teach online, so if people want to drop in for a lesson, they have that ability too.
Yes, thank you for asking that. Yes, I probably have 4 to 5 students who live out of state, so we meet exclusively on Zoom every week, and that works great.
Yeah. It's a great feature to offer. Well, Dr. Latour, thank you so much for being here, and we'll put all that information down in the description notes down there. But thank you for coming on to the session. I hope that people found this interesting and they could glean something from it.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. That was Dr. Michelle Latour, a true force in vocal pedagogy and a champion for singers finding their own artistic identity. I hope her insights on technique, body awareness, and career sustainability gave you something meaningful to take back into your own practice. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves the craft of singing. And don't forget, new episodes of the Jensen Sessions drop regularly here on From Score to Stage, where we explore the stories and skills that shape great musicianship. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next session.